What happened when the perfect daughter finally broke? She broke at a Costco, in the paper towel aisle, holding a 36-pack of Bounty. She sat on the floor next to the pallet and cried for 9 minutes while shoppers steered their carts around her, and a stock associate named Gerald asked if she needed medical attention, and she said, "I need my mom to stop calling me about napkin brands. I am the perfect daughter. I was the perfect daughter." The tense depends on which side of the Costco floor you're standing on, because the floor is where the perfection stopped. My mother raised me to be perfect, not good. Perfect. The distinction matters because good is a range and perfect is a point, and the point is the only acceptable location on the range, and the location requires maintenance, and the maintenance is constant. I was valedictorian, I was student body president, I was the daughter who made her bed before being asked, and cleared the table before being asked, and anticipated every need, before the need was expressed, because anticipation was the skill my mother taught me, and the teaching was delivered through feedback, and the feedback was a look. The look. The specific facial expression my mother produces when something is not perfect. The look is not anger. Anger has heat. The look is cold. The look is the temperature drop that happens in a room when a mother's face communicates, "You have disappointed a standard I didn't speak aloud, but which you should have known." The napkin call was the trigger. My mother called me at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. I was at Costco. She said, "I need napkins for Thanksgiving. Get the ones with the leaf print, not the plain ones. The plain ones look cheap." I said, "They don't have the leaf print." She said, "Check the seasonal aisle." I checked. No leaf print. I said, "They're out." She said, "Then go to the other Costco." The other Costco is 35 minutes away. She wanted me to drive 35 minutes for a napkin pattern because the pattern was the standard, and the standard was the leaf print, and the leaf print was the performance. I did not drive to the other Costco. I stood in the paper towel aisle. I held the phone. I said, "Mom, I'm not driving 35 minutes for napkins." She said, "The table won't look right." I said, "The table will look like a table." She said, "Don't be difficult." Difficult. The word that means not perfect. I sat down, on the floor, in the Costco, next to Bounty. I cried. 9 minutes. I counted because counting is the thing perfect daughters do when they cry because the counting gives the crying a structure. Gerald, the stock associate, approached. He said, "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need medical attention?" I said, "I need my mom to stop calling me about napkin brands." He looked at me. He looked at the Bounty. He said, "The leaf prints are in the seasonal section, but they're sold out. I know because 14 people have asked me today." He said, "Bounty is the same quality with or without the leaves." I said, "Thank you, Gerald. You have just said the most liberating sentence anyone has ever said to me in a Costco." The sentence, "Same quality with or without the leaves," sat in my brain. Same quality with or without the leaves. I am the same quality with or without the performance. The performance is the leaf print. The leaf print is the thing my mother adds to the surface to make the surface acceptable, and the surface is me. I called my mother back from the floor. I said, "I'm not getting the leaf print napkins. I'm not going to the other Costco. I'm sitting on the floor of this Costco crying next to a 36-pack of paper towels because you asked me to drive 35 minutes for a napkin pattern, and the asking was the thing that broke me, because the asking was not about napkins. The asking was about the leaf print, and the leaf print is the performance, and the performance is the thing you have required of me since I was 7 and I am 29 and I am done performing." She was quiet. She said, "You're causing a scene." I said, "The scene is the first honest thing I've done in 11 years. The quality has always been fine. You just couldn't see it without the decoration." I hung up. I bought the plain napkins, the ones without leaves. Thanksgiving was last Thursday. I set the table. Plain napkins. White, no leaves. My mother arrived. She looked at the table. She looked at the napkins. She opened her mouth. I said, "Don't." She closed her mouth. She sat down. She ate the turkey. She used the plain napkin. The week after Thanksgiving felt like freedom. I texted Eleanor on Tuesday. "I think I actually did it. I think I'm free." She texted back, "Just don't assume silence means acceptance." I brushed it off. Eleanor worries. I went to the store that afternoon and I bought plain napkins for my own home. White napkins with no pattern and no leaves and no performance. And I put them in the holder on my counter. That night I left a dish in the sink. A cereal bowl with a little bit of milk still in it. I left the bowl. I went to bed. I slept fine. Saturday morning I didn't make my bed. Each small act of imperfection felt like a revolution. 5 days of this. I thought the war was over. Then the calls started. My aunt called on Wednesday, 6 days after Thanksgiving. She said, "Honey, your mother is worried about you. She said you had some kind of episode at Costco." I said, "What?" She said you were on the floor crying, in public. She's really concerned. Then my cousin texted that same afternoon. "Hope told me you screamed at her on Thanksgiving. Are you okay?" I did not scream at Hope on Thanksgiving. I said one word, "Don't." One word. One single calm word at a dinner table. And somehow between my mouth and Hope's retelling, "Don't" became screaming. Hope hadn't gone silent because she accepted the boundary. She went silent with me because she was talking to everyone else. She was telling the story, but not my story, her version. I called Eleanor. "She's telling people I had a breakdown." Eleanor paused. "She called me too, last night. She asked me to talk to you. She said you've been acting erratic since the fall." The word erratic landed in my chest like something heavy, a clinical word, a word that makes a boundary sound like a symptom. "What did you tell her?" Eleanor said, "I told her I'd check on you, and I am. I'm checking on you right now. Are you okay?" I closed my eyes. "I'm okay. I'm more okay than I've been in 11 years." Then hold on to that, because she's building a case and you need to know what you're walking into. A case. Hope wasn't grieving. She was building. Every phone call was a brick. I had thought the hard part was the Costco floor, but those were just the announcement. I had announced that the performance was over, and Hope had heard the announcement and decided to give her own performance to every person in our family. Hope didn't need me to come back to the performance. She just needed everyone else to believe I had left it because something was broken in me, not because something was broken in the performance itself. So I decided to call Hope right then. The phone rang once. She picked up on the first ring and her voice came through warm and calm and sweet. "Hi, sweetheart. I was just thinking about you. Just thinking about you." Like it was a coincidence. I didn't ease into it. I said, "Why are you telling everyone I had a breakdown?" Silence. One beat, two. Then Hope said, "I didn't say that. I said I was concerned. A mother is allowed to be concerned when her daughter sits on a public floor and cries." She didn't say breakdown. She said concerned. Every word was chosen the way she chooses napkins, for the impression it makes. "I cried because you asked me to drive 35 minutes for napkins," I said. said. And Hope said, see, that's what worries me. You're reducing everything to napkins. It was never about napkins. I opened my mouth to respond and nothing came out. Because she was right. It was never about napkins. I had said that myself, but Hope wasn't agreeing with me. She was taking my own truth and wearing it like a costume. She was using the thing I had figured out about myself as a weapon against me. Then what was it about? I asked. Hope's voice got softer. It was about you being overwhelmed. And when people are overwhelmed, they lash out at the people closest to them. I'm not angry. I understand. I understand. Two words that sounded like love and functioned like a cage. I could see the whole thing so clearly. Every word Hope said was a leaf print. Decorative, positioned, designed to make the surface look a certain way. I'm not overwhelmed, I said. I set a boundary. Hope laughed, softly, the kind of laugh that says, oh honey, without saying it. And then she said the word. A boundary is a conversation, sweetheart. What you did was a performance. Performance. My word. The word I had used to describe the 11 years. My word. And she took it. She made my liberation sound like another act. Another dramatic scene from an unstable daughter. I felt the ground move under me. Just enough that for one terrible second, I wondered if she was right. Was the Costco floor a performance? Was I performing imperfection now instead of perfection? The silence on the phone stretched. Hope let it stretch because Hope knows that silence after a good hit is more effective than talking. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Eleanor. Don't let her flip it. You know what happened. Stay on your feet. Stay on your feet. Because the last time this happened, I ended up on a floor. I read Eleanor's text and I took a breath. A real one. I'm coming to your house on Saturday, I said. We need to talk in person. Not on the phone. Not through relatives. Just us. Hope paused. Then her voice came back. Still warm. Of course. I'll make lunch. And then, because Hope is Hope, she said, should I use the nice napkins? The dig was so precise. So perfectly aimed. The kind of comment that 1 week ago would have made me sit on a floor. But I was not 3 weeks ago. I was not the floor. I was the woman who stood up from the floor. I almost laughed. I let it go, and instead I said, use whatever napkins you want. I'm bringing my own. Friday night, I sat at my table with Eleanor, who had come over with takeout from the Thai place down the street. Eleanor looked at me across the table and said, what's your plan? I said, I'm going to tell her the truth. All of it. Every time the look made me shrink. Every time I drove to a second store for something that didn't matter. Eleanor nodded. And what do you want from her? I opened my mouth and then I closed it, because the answer I wanted to give was, I want her to change. But that wasn't the real answer. I want her to hear it, I said. Eleanor looked at me. That's not the same as wanting her to change. I know. Eleanor put down her fork. I need to tell you something. Something I've never told you. I waited. Eleanor said, your mom called me once 3 years ago. It was after your birthday dinner. The one where she rearranged the flowers at the restaurant because the centerpiece was off center. I remembered. She called me the next day and she said, I don't know how to talk to her without correcting her. I know I do it. I just don't know how to stop. I stared at Eleanor. She said that? Eleanor nodded. And then she said, don't tell her I said that. She'll think I'm weak. And I didn't tell you. Until now. Eleanor said, because I think you need to know that the woman you're going to confront tomorrow is not just controlling. She's scared. And scared people fight hardest when you get close to the thing they're scared of. I sat with that. Hope knows. On some level, buried under the napkin fans and the diagonal sandwiches and the look, Hope knows what she does. The knowing didn't make it okay. It actually made it worse. The confrontation wasn't about making Hope see. It was about making Hope admit. And admitting is the thing you do when you already see, but you've covered what you see with so many leaf prints and table settings and looks that the seeing is buried. I almost canceled. I picked up my phone at 9:15. My thumb was over the call button. I put the phone down. I picked it up again at 9:40. Same thumb, same button, same almost. Eleanor was still sitting across from me. She waited until my thumb was hovering over the call button for the second time, and then she said, you're not going there to fix her. You're going there to stop fixing yourself for her. Those are different things. I put the phone down. I put it face down on the table. I went to bed. I did not set an alarm. Every Saturday for as long as I can remember, the alarm went off at 6:30 because 6:30 is the time perfect daughters wake up to start performing the weekend. I did not set the alarm. I slept until 8:47 a.m. The sleeping was the thing I needed. The sleeping was rest, and the rest was fuel, and the fuel was for Saturday. I drove to Hope's house on Saturday with a bag on the passenger seat. Inside the bag were plain white napkins. I walked in. Hope had set the table for two. The table had cloth napkins, folded into fans, linen, ironed. The creases were sharp enough to cut paper. I sat down. I placed my bag on the floor beside my chair. Hope came out carrying a plate of sandwiches, cut diagonally, crusts removed, presentation perfect. She set the plate between us, and she sat across from me, and she looked at my face the way she looks at a table setting, scanning for flaws, and she said, you look tired. I said, I am tired. I've been tired since I was 7. Hope's jaw tightened. She said, don't start with the dramatics. I said, the dramatics are the only language you taught me. Everything in this house is a production. The napkin fans, the diagonal sandwiches, the crusts. You taught me that the surface is the only thing that matters, and then you made me into a surface. Hope set down her fork. She said, I taught you standards. Standards are not the same as control. I said, when the standard changes based on your mood and I'm punished for not reading your mind, that's control. When I drive to a second store because the first store's napkins aren't decorative enough, that's control. When I sit on a Costco floor crying at 29 years old because I'm afraid of your face when I bring home the wrong pattern, that's not standards. That's a daughter who has been performing for a mother who never told her when the show was good enough to stop. Hope's eyes filled. She blinked. Once. Twice. And then her voice came out different. Not the dinner party voice. Not the warm and calm voice. But something underneath those voices. Something I had never heard. She said, you think I don't know? I froze. She kept going. You think I don't hear myself? You think I don't stand in my home after you leave and think, why did I say that? Why did I correct the way she folded the towel? Why did I count the place settings twice? I hear it. I hear every word after I say it. But during, the only thing in my head is my mother's voice telling me that if the table isn't right, the family isn't right. And if the family isn't right, it's my fault. And if it's my fault, then I failed. And failure is the thing I cannot. She stopped. Her hands were shaking. I watched my mother's hands shake on the table next to the linen fans she had ironed that morning, and this was the thing underneath the leaf print. Hope's mother did this to Hope. The loop didn't start with me. It started a generation earlier. I reached into my bag. I pulled out a plain white napkin. I unfolded it. I placed it on the table next to Hope's linen fan. I said, same quality with or without the leaves. Hope looked at the napkin. She looked at me. She said, where did you hear that? I said, a stock associate at Costco named Gerald. He was talking about paper towels, but he was talking about me, and he was talking about you. You are the same quality without the performance, Mom. You just never had anyone tell you that. Hope picked up the plain napkin. She held it. She didn't fold it. She didn't fan it. She just held it, this cheap white square of nothing special, and she said, I don't know how to stop. I said, you don't have to stop all at once. You just have to stop with me. Start with me. I'm not your mother's table. I'm your daughter, and the daughter is fine without the leaves. Hope pressed the napkin to her face. She cried, not perfectly, not with structure, not for a counted number of minutes. She cried the way I cried on the Costco floor. Honest, messy, without a boundary, without a shape, without a fan fold or a diagonal cut or a leaf print. I reached across the table and held my mother's hand, the hand that folded the fans, the hand that pointed at imperfections, the hand that was now just a hand. We sat at that table for another hour. We didn't fix everything. We didn't fix most things. Hope picked up the plain napkin and folded it once out of habit, and then she caught herself and unfolded it and laughed, and the laugh was wet and real. I drove home. On my counter was the pack of plain white napkins from Costco. I put one under a fork. I texted Eleanor. She heard me. Eleanor texted back. Same quality? I typed back. Same quality. I left the dish in the sink. I didn't make the bed. I sat on my couch, which was the first floor I had sat on since the Costco floor.